Sophie Cunningham just tore the filter off the WNBA and dragged Kelsey Plum straight into the eye of the storm. In the latest episode of her brand new podcast, Sophie didn't tiptoe, didn't sugarcoat, didn't no-comment her way through the drama. She named names. She called out egos. And she didn't flinch once while shining a brutal light on the behind-the-scenes chaos threatening to derail the league's biggest opportunity in decades, Caitlin Clark. And the fans? They heard her loud and clear. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. In a sport where most players are coached to stay quiet, to smile and play through it, Sophie Cunningham just said what everyone else was too scared or too political to say. There's a major divide in the WNBA right now, and it's not about skill, it's about ego. And the person caught in the middle of it? Caitlin Clark. This all hit a boiling point after the All-Star game, when what should have been a celebration of the league's growth turned into a high school lunchroom energy situation. From cryptic quotes to awkward sideline interactions, the tension was impossible to ignore, and Sophie decided to stop pretending. Her words? The league is acting like Caitlin is the problem, when in reality, she's the solution. She's the reason we're even having this conversation. She's brought more eyes to this game in 6 months than some players have seen in 6 years. And instead of working with that, people are choosing to be petty. And then she dropped the name. Kelsey Plum. I'm just going to say it. Silence for a beat. Then she continued. She's a great player. She's tough. She's accomplished. But the way she's been moving lately, it's not leadership, it's insecurity. You can't preach unity and growth out of one side of your mouth and then throw subtle jabs and backhanded quotes at the person responsible for the most growth the league has seen. That's not real. Boom. There it was. The moment that sent fans spiraling, clips circulating, and group chats lighting up like wildfire. Because let's be honest, Sophie wasn't wrong. The All-Star game was awkward. The interactions with Clark? Cold. The vibe? More mean girl than teen girl. And the drama surrounding Plum's alleged attitude toward Caitlin? It wasn't just gossip. It was obvious. The body language, the comments, the tension in post-game interviews. Fans weren't imagining it, and Sophie confirmed what they were seeing with their own eyes. She went further. 2. She talked about how this kind of division is holding the lead back, that the WNBA finally has something that mainstream audiences are paying attention to, and instead of rallying around it, players are letting jealousy get in the way. And not just jealousy over stats, but over attention, over headlines, over whose face is on the front of the ticket. Here's the thing, Sophie said. Caitlin Clark's impact doesn't take anything away from you. If you're a real hooper, her success just adds more eyes to your game. She brings more fans into the building. She makes your moments bigger. But if you're insecure, you start looking at her like she's your competition instead of your teammate in this larger fight for respect. That comment? Devastating and necessary, because the WNBA isn't just playing basketball right now. It's fighting for relevance, for real TV deals, for higher salaries, for serious global attention. And it's Caitlin Clark who's opened the door wider than ever before. The arenas are packed because of her. The ratings are up because of her. The merchandise is flying off the shelves because of her. That's not opinion. It's reality. And Sophie Cunningham, in her boldest moment yet, called out the people trying to deny that reality. Her most cutting line? You can't grow the league if you're too busy trying to gatekeep it. Because that's what this is really about. There's a portion of the league, players, fans, maybe even some folks behind the scenes, who don't want the new wave to lead, who don't want someone like Clark, fresh out of college, to become the face. Not because she's unqualified, but because she's not them. Because she didn't wait her turn. Because she didn't spend years being overlooked. Because she walked into the league and immediately changed it. And instead of seeing that as a win, they see it as a threat. But Sophie, she sees it for what it is, a once-in-a-generation chance. She's not just a player, Sophie said. She's a movement. And if we fumble this because people are too busy asking, why not me, instead of saying, let's build together, then we deserve the consequences. Let's just take a second to appreciate how rare this kind of honesty is. Most athletes stay buttoned up on air. They duck the drama. They stick to generic lines about teamwork and respect and just focusing on the game. But Sophie didn't do that. She took the lid off the pot and let it boil over, and fans responded. The episode pulled 250,000 views in just a couple days. Clips went viral across platforms. Fans who had no idea Sophie had even launched a podcast were suddenly calling her the truth teller the WNBA desperately needs. Comment sections filled up with support. People were thanking her for saying what they'd been yelling at their screens for weeks. Because honestly, this isn't just a Caitlin Clark issue. It's a culture issue. It's about the league's identity crisis, stuck between the players who built it and the players now carrying it into a new era. And instead of finding a way to merge those worlds, it feels like there's a civil war happening behind the scenes. The sad part? It's all ego, all perception, all fear that sharing the spotlight means losing it. But that's what makes Sophie's words so important. She gets that it's not about her. It's about the league as a whole. She's not afraid to praise Caitlin's impact. She's not afraid to criticize players in her own circle. She's not protecting feelings. She's protecting the future. And yeah, she even threw some shade at her home crowd. "I'm from Missouri," she said. "You think I don't see how some of these Midwest folks are acting? People I've known forever. I see it. But I'm not here to protect fragile egos. I'm here to protect the game." That's the kind of leadership the WNBA needs right now. Because while others are busy measuring credit, Sophie's over here measuring impact. She's reminding everyone that none of this growth, none of it, happens if we turn Caitlin Clark into a villain just because she's popular, just because she's young, just because she's different. The truth? Sophie Cunningham didn't go nuts on Kelsey Plum. She went honest. She said the quiet part out loud. She exposed what too many players have been whispering behind closed doors. And now, the WNBA has to reckon with it. No more pretending. No more vague pressers. No more ignoring what fans are clearly seeing and feeling. Because if the league can't figure out how to unite its talent instead of letting them tear each other down, the real loser won't be Caitlin Clark, or Sophie Cunningham, or even Kelsey Plum. It'll be the WNBA. And Sophie, she's not going to let that happen without a fight. If Sophie Cunningham is a fire starter, then the league has officially walked straight into the blaze. And now they're acting surprised at hot. The aftermath of her podcast wasn't just a media moment. It was a rupture, a shift, a line in the sand between players who are ready to push the league forward and those still stuck in a turf war, obsessed with who gets the credit instead of asking how they can share the spotlight. And what's wild is how overdue this was. 4 months now. Caitlin Clark has been the center of gravity in the WNBA. Every game she plays is a ratings bonanza. Her arrival has brought in new fans, new coverage, new energy. But instead of embracing the moment, too many players have been whispering behind closed doors, throwing shade in interviews, or just plain acting like Clark is an unwelcome guest at a party they've been throwing for years. Enter Sophie. Mic on. No notes. No PR babysitter. Because let's be real, Sophie's tired. Tired of watching grown professionals act like the success of one player is a threat to their legacy. Tired of watching her teammate, a generational talent, get dragged not for her performance, but for her existence. Tired of the league playing both sides, cashing in on Clark's popularity while letting the locker room culture rot. In her words, you don't get to ride the wave of her attention and then leave her drowning when it gets uncomfortable. That's the reality. The league is banking on Clark. She is the ticket, the headline. The reason middle school girls across the country are begging their parents for WNBA jerseys for the first time ever. The reason sports media is finally covering this league with the same energy they bring to men's games. And still, some of her peers would rather focus on whether she's earned her stripes. Newsflash, she earned them the second she put thousands of new eyes on every court she steps on. The second she made games feel like events. The second her presence doubled attendance overnight. Sophie wasn't shy about it. The league is small. We all talk, and we all see it. This idea that Clark is getting everything handed to her, that's insecurity talking. She works harder than most. She takes the hits literally and never says a word. She's leading in minutes, in attention, and in expectations. And she's not complaining. And then she said, what might go down as the quote of the season. You want to be the face of the league? Cool. Then act like it. Lift other people up. Stop swinging down. Boom. That's the sting. That's the moment every player watching probably had to sit with a little. Because whether it's Kelsey Plum or anyone else who's been fanning the flames of tension, Sophie made it clear. She sees you, and she's done staying silent. It's not lost on fans that Sophie's podcast blew up precisely because it was real. No handlers, no brand-safe platitudes, just raw truth. That's the kind of authenticity people are craving, not just in sports, but across the board. We've entered an era where the audience can smell a scripted answer from a mile away. What they want is what Sophie gave them. Emotion, honesty, a take that doesn't read like it passed through 5 layers of PR edits. And if the WNBA's front office was paying attention, they'd realize that Sophie just did their job for them. She united the fan base around a message of progress. She called out the toxicity without tearing the whole house down. She demanded better, not just for Caitlin, but for everyone. Because here's the other thing Sophie got absolutely right. The league's problems aren't just about Clark. They're about culture. A culture where older players haze the newer ones under guise of earning respect. A culture where jealousy masquerades as critique. A culture where being popular is a liability if you didn't grind for 10 years in obscurity first. And look, Sophie's no stranger to that world. She's not some fresh rookie who just learned the ropes. She's been in the league, dealt with the politics, taken the hits. She's earned her voice. And she used it not just to defend her teammate, but to defend progress. Because progress is messy. It doesn't always arrive politely. Sometimes it shows up in a blonde ponytail with a Nike deal and a million new fans in tow. And yeah, maybe that ruffles feathers. But the solution isn't to clip her wings. It's to fly with her. This whole situation has exposed something deeply uncomfortable for the WNBA. The fact that some of its own players seem more interested in protecting their pride than growing their platform. But if players like Kelsey Plum are looking at Caitlin Clark and seeing a threat, they're missing the whole point. The real threat isn't her. It's the league staying stuck in its ways. That's why Sophie's comments landed so hard. She's not anti-vet. She's not anti-Kelsey. She's just anti-BS. She even said it directly. You can respect the players who came before you and still hold them accountable for how they act now. You can love this league and still say, we're getting in our own way. That's not hate, that's honesty. And what makes Sophie so compelling in this moment is that she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She's not hiding behind vague statements. She's willing to be disliked. She's willing to say the unpopular truth. That takes guts. It also takes clarity. Because through all the noise, the truth is simple. If the WNBA wants to grow, it has to stop eating its own. It has to stop turning every new star into a culture war. It has to stop making players feel like success comes with a side of punishment. Clark didn't ask to be the face of the league. She just is. You either work with that, or you work against yourselves. Sophie's podcast has kicked off a much-needed dialogue. And it's not just about who said what, or who likes who, or who made who feel slighted at the All-Star game. It's about where the league goes from here. Does it choose collaboration, or does it double down on cliques and quiet sabotage? Because make no mistake, the fans are watching closely, and they're not dumb. They know when players are being messy. They know when egos are getting in the way. And they also know when someone's speaking from the heart. That's why Sophie's words hit like a gut punch. She said what needed to be said, and then some, and now the ball's in the league's court. Will they continue to allow petty tensions to dominate the headlines? Or will they step in, set the tone, and make it clear that there's room for everyone at the table? Will players like Kelsey Plum be willing to evolve, to admit when they've let pride get in the way of progress? Will veterans and rookies alike finally understand that the success of one is the success of all? Or will this moment pass, and with it, the best shot the WNBA has had in decades to become the cultural force it should be? No matter what happens next, one thing is clear. Sophie Cunningham isn't backing down. She's got the mic. She's got the message. And now, she's got the momentum. Let's see who's brave enough to meet her there. There's a reason Sophie Cunningham's words keep echoing, because what she unleashed in that podcast wasn't just commentary. It was a challenge, a mirror held up to a league that wants to grow, but seems afraid of what growth actually demands. Let's be honest. The WNBA has always fought for respect. From day one, it's battle for equal coverage, real investment, and fan loyalty that doesn't come with an asterisk. But now it has the attention. Now, because of players like Caitlin Clark, the league is finally on center stage. And instead of grabbing that moment with both hands, some of its own stars are treating it like a threat to their seat at the table. That's not growth. That's gatekeeping. And Sophie Cunningham is done watching it happen. She's seen what Clark's presence has done for the game: packed arenas, sold-out jerseys, first-time viewers staying up to watch full games. She's lived it, shared the court with it, experienced the chaos and the energy firsthand. And she knows this isn't a fluke. It's not a phase. This is a shift. A generational pivot in how women's basketball is perceived, consumed, and celebrated. So why, she asks, are some players still acting like it's all about them? During her podcast, Sophie dug deeper into what she calls the ego tax. It's what happens when players spend more time trying to protect their personal status than building something collective. She didn't just call out Plum. She called out the culture of status obsession. Players worry more about who gets the credit than about who moves the league forward. Some of y'all are acting like the growth of women's sports is a zero-sum game, she said. Like if Caitlin shines, you disappear. That's not how this works. That's never how this has worked. And that hits because it's true. Growth isn't a pie with limited slices. It's a flame. The more players who bring heat, the brighter it gets. And Clark? She's gasoline. That doesn't diminish the vets. It makes their stories bigger, their moments more visible, their names more valuable. But that only works if they stop acting like the new spotlight means their own careers are fading into shadows. Sophie made it personal, too. I've had to check myself, she said. We all do. We all have egos. I'd be lying if I said I never felt frustrated seeing someone else get the attention I thought I deserved. But then you take a breath, zoom out, and realize it's not about one person. It's about all of us. And if you love this league, you want to win, not just you. That vulnerability, that's what separates her from the noise. She's not lobbing grenades from a distance. She's in it. She's owning her own reactions. She's asking others to do the same. And for fans, especially new ones, that matters. Because they're watching this league through a new lens. They didn't grow up on WNBA beefs. They don't care who's been around the longest. They care about who's exciting, who's inspiring, who's real. And when they see players like Sophie standing up for someone like Caitlin, not because she has to, but because she knows it's right, they listen. Because here's the twist. Clark doesn't talk. She doesn't clap back. She plays. She shows up. She takes the hits. She keeps going. She's the calm in the center of the storm, which means it's up to players like Sophie to say what Clark won't, and she's doing it with fire and clarity. She even addressed the All-Star Game incident in detail. The tension, the coldness, the lack of chemistry. That wasn't about basketball, she said. That was about egos. People walking into that game thinking it was their time to remind the world they still matter. And instead of lifting the whole game, they turned it into an icebox. It was supposed to be a showcase. We made a standoff. That honesty, it stings, but it's also healing. Because the only way to fix this culture war is to name it. Sophie just did that. And then some. She also pointed to something crucial: leadership, not just among players, but from the league itself. The WNBA, she said, needs to step up and set the tone. That means supporting new stars without alienating veterans. That means having tough conversations about how players treat each other, on and off the court. That means creating a culture where success is shared, not resented. This isn't a pickup game in someone's backyard, Sophie said. This is professional basketball. If we can't act like professionals, then we don't deserve the professional attention we're finally getting. Another moment that struck a nerve when she talked about her own team. She didn't name names, but she made it clear. No locker room is immune to jealousy. No team is free from tension. And the difference between a strong team and a divided one is how they deal with it. You either let that stuff rot from the inside or you talk it out, she said. You hold each other accountable. You say, I love you, but you're being weird right now. That line got a laugh from the audience, but it was deadly serious. Because that's the point. This doesn't have to be an ugly feud. It doesn't have to be war, but it does require honesty. It requires players to grow up, get over themselves, and recognize that if they don't evolve with the league, they'll be left behind by it. What's happening right now in the WNBA isn't just drama. It's a battle over direction. One path leads to pettiness, resentment, and stunted potential. The other leads to unity, growth, and a stronger, more respected league. And right now, Sophie Cunningham is screaming from the sidelines. Choose wisely, because she knows what's at stake. Everyone does. Clark isn't just the flavor of the month. She's an inflection point, a cultural shift in sneakers. She's bringing in fans who never watched a single minute of women's hoops before. She's introducing the league to sponsors, media markets, and casual viewers who've long ignored it. That kind of influence doesn't come along often. Squander it now, you might not get another shot. And here's the quiet part nobody wants to admit. Players like Clark do leave. They burn out. They pivot. They find other ways to use their platform. She doesn't need the league. She chose it. And if the environment stays hostile, if the culture refuses to evolve, she could just as easily walk away. And then what? That's what Sophie sees. That's what she's trying to warn against. Not because she wants to tear down other players, but because she wants to build something better. A league that's not just talented, but healthy. One that knows how to lift as it climbs. One that actually lives up to the standard it claims to set. And here's the best part. Sophie's not alone. Her words, her honesty, her vision, it's catching on. Other players are nodding. More voices are chiming in. The silence is breaking. And while not everyone is ready to be as loud as Sophie, the tide is turning. The league wants to evolve. It just needed someone to finally say the hard things out loud. And now that she has, there's no putting the lid back on. Sophie Cunningham didn't just go off on Kelsey Plum or the league's culture. She opened the door to something much bigger, accountability. And the WNBA is better for it.